good at basketball. There's nothing you can do about it.
I thought there was a little push-off in there, but on further review, there was no push-off.
It's just the Zach thing. Clearly, that's where we're at.
Brian Russell moment in there, but there wasn't.
Uh-oh. Look at that. All right, welcome to the Job. I'm George Sedano, in for our fearless leader, Rachel Nichols, who's out on assignment. We are only one day away from the start of the NBA season, so we've got a couple of ESPN's best NBA minds in the house. Senior writer and host of the Low Post podcast, Mr. Zach Lowe. Clap it up for this man right here. And then, of course, as well, we have one half of the best television duo of all time, PTI's Michael Wilbon.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely. The Emmys back it up. I don't think there's any question about that. All right. Coming up, the Heat suspend Dion Waiters for opening night, citing conduct detrimental to the team. Is Dion's future with the Heat now in jeopardy? I have thoughts. Stick around for that. But first, opening tip eve, that is, isn't just the last day that fans have to draft their fantasy teams. It's actually a huge day for real-life NBA franchises. Here's a look at some of the notable deadlines today. By 5 Eastern, rosters must be set for opening days with no more than 15 players and a pair of two-way contracts. It's also the last day to extend a veteran with multiple years left on their deal, and the last day to sign a rookie extension, with that deadline coming at 6 Eastern. Speaking of which, Woj reports that Buddy Hield agreed to a 4-year, $94 million deal with the Kings earlier today. We'll discuss that deal in just a moment. But first, the biggest rookie extension news over the weekend came from the defending champion Toronto Raptors. The Raptors signed Pascal Siakam to a contract extension worth a projected $130 million over 4 years. Siakam's agent tells our agent Wojnarowski and Zach Lowe, this man right here, this is max money, but not max years. Zach, you've been on the Siakam bandwagon for a long time, since the jump. Are you entirely sold on Siakam as a max player?
Spicy P.
Yeah?
I'm driving the bandwagon. I have the keys to the bandwagon. I am sold. I mean, the rookie, the first max you can sign is the smallest one, right? It's 25% of the cap now. Maybe there's what some GMs are calling the Darryl deduction coming because of the China stuff. Maybe not. I don't know. But I think that's pretty safe. I think he's going to score more this year. He has a chance to be one of the 10 or 15 best defensive players in the league. He can create off the dribble. I think he has a chance this year to make All-Star, All-NBA, and All-Defense. I think that's how good he can be.
There were players last year, this makes total sense, and I think safe is the word you use, Zach, which makes total sense. There were guys in his locker room last year, maybe not all of them are there anymore, who thought he was going to be a big step forward player this year, and they thought that, I know, during the conference finals last year. So as far back as May, they were saying, okay, he's going to be a guy that we have to keep. He is going to be a player who takes a big jump. And if you project that, I mean, both executive staff and people in the locker room, then it makes all the sense in the world. As a matter of fact, it would just not make any sense if you didn't do it.
And he's of the age, too. I think he's 25 or 26 now, where this deal is going to carry him right through his prime. It's a perfect age range. And I think without Kawhi this year, he has a chance to average 20 points a game. He's going to bump up his scoring. He's going to have a big year.
He's just such a hard worker. I had a couple of their games last year, particularly during the postseason, and Nick Nurse told me that 2 years ago, that after they got eliminated, the next day he was in the gym and he was shooting threes. He had shot 22% that year. He got up to 37% last year. He told him he had to shoot 350 of each particular shot, and he was doing that once a day for 3 days, and then he bumped it up to 2 times a day after that. So, yeah, this kid is he's all in on just becoming as good a player as he can be.
And he's got an incredible story. Started the game late, went to college, barely recruited, really. Didn't play much early in his college career. I think he might have been redshirt. I can't remember off the top of my head. And now he's a max player in the NBA. It's an incredible story.
What's important here, too, is that you got to look at certain teams doing what they ought to do when it comes to player development. Not every franchise does that. I mean, sometimes it just becomes sort of a search for whomever you can cherry pick from somewhere else. And if that approach works, fine. But Toronto has to be invested in this. And I think it's a fit. And it seems like he fits what they're doing, Zach, as well as anybody they could have wanted to have. And he was already there. So why not make this move?
Zach, we see the salary figures here. How does his extension impact the long term here for the Raptors?
Well, all of those ones in the years column and actually the 2 are also important. So it doesn't, the answer is it doesn't really. And I mean that in a good way for Toronto. This summer, they're going to be a little bit short of max space, but they don't really care. They still can go get a player. It's the summer of 2021, the summer of Giannis and many other players that they're concerned about, and they're crystal clear max slot plus that summer. So they're fine with that, and Lowry will expire by then. They can still trade Kyle Lowry if they want to, but it doesn't really impact them at all.
Let me ask you about that Lowry contract, because I think that's a nice contract for a contender that still wants to be in play for 2021, right? Like, to me, that's a very valuable contract.
Which is why they might keep him. I think the Raptors are going to be good this year. I mean, everyone is sort of waiting for them to just trade everybody, trade Gasol, Ibaka, Lowry, and they may do that if they're 15-20 or something. I think they will do that, but I don't think they're going to be 15-20. I think they're going to be really good.
I think we were expecting the same thing. I was just looking, as I obsessively go over 1 through 8 trying to figure it out. I mean, I have Toronto in the middle of that Eastern Conference pack, and it wouldn't surprise me if they win as north as, 4th. They've got the guts of a championship team there. I know there's a massive, massive loss you can't ignore. But if, again, you're projecting what this signing means and keeping this particular player to be one of your two now best players in that lineup, then Toronto, they have to feel pretty good about themselves.
And by the way, if I were a star free agent in 2 summers, 3 summers, whenever, I would look at Pascal Siakam as exactly the kind of guy I want to play with. He's unselfish. He defends every position. He is at his best. He would be a great second or third option. He's not going to ever be a first option on a championship team, but you slot him second or third like he was last year, you can clearly win the championship.
Yeah, we've seen that, certainly. Let's move on from players to coaches. Woj reports that the Jazz and head coach Quinn Snyder have agreed on a long-term deal. Snyder had 2 years left on his old deal. He's 227, 183 in 5 seasons in Utah. So, Mike, how should the Jazz fans feel about this particular season? What are your expectations?
If we're talking about teams we have expectations for, again, obsessively 1 through 8 trying to figure out the Western Conference, I think that we're talking about regular season positioning. That's all we can figure out. I'm not going to try to look ahead to the playoffs.
Right.
I think that Utah is probably the most overlooked team. The conversations I've had with players and coaches go something like this. Oh, yeah, that's right. I can't forget Utah. But people do forget Utah.
Yeah.
They've forgotten them by the way they answer that question. And I think Quinn Snyder, he seems really suited to the group he's got now, to be a guy who's coaching Mike Conley. I mean, just the lineup they have, the depth they have, they're too deep almost everywhere. I think the Utah fans ought to feel this is the best chance and the best team they've had since Stockton and Malone. Mm-hmm. We're going back 20 years. So why wouldn't they feel pretty good in Salt Lake City?
I dream big. That's what I say to Utah fans. Dream big. I think they're a championship contender. Now, the preseason raised some alarm bells, and they have some questions to answer. I think if they got into a playoff series with the Lakers or the Clippers, right now, as their roster stands, I don't know that they have a guy they can throw at LeBron and Kawhi and Paul George, and you can confidently say he can hold his own without emergency double teams and triple teams and all that. So, the matchups are going to be key, but this team has the talent and the structure to be a very good offensive team and a very good defensive team.
My only question about them is how do they defend 4s, right? Like when they have that lineup out there, like I don't know what they do against a good 4. Right? Like, I think that's their only Achilles heel.
And I think what their response would be is A, we'll figure it out because we have Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley bookending our defense, and B, our Achilles heel, the thing that cost us in the playoffs every year, was we couldn't make a shot.
Right.
And now we're going to make shots. And those big 4s and big 5s are going to have to deal with us on the other end.
Yeah, all right. Let's take a look at the Caesars odds to win the Western Conference here. Zach, which team do you think would be the safest bet?
The safest bet?
Yeah. Not the likeliest, just the safest, the one you feel.
I feel good about Clippers as the safest bet. I think the Clippers are the best team in the NBA, top to bottom. But I like the Jazz plus 800. If I were the gambling type, I might throw something on that.
Safest bet, I'd say the Clippers as well.
Yeah.
But wow, the Jazz, once again, they're answering the question in Vegas the same way people around the league have been summer, fall, which is don't forget the Jazz, but they've sort of forgotten them.
I think that gap between Rockets, Warriors, and Utah is way too big in terms of odds to win the West.
Yeah, the Warriors getting a lot of love. I think Vegas is playing on the fact that some people believe that maybe Klay comes back and helps this team. I just don't know how soon you can expect them to come back, especially off the heels of what they just dealt with Kevin Durant in the finals.
Yeah, they're the last team that is going to rush somebody back from injury this season.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Can't afford to. And why would you?
Right. Right, you just got a long-term.
If there's one team that is playing with no pressure to win now, it would be the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, for sure. The Nuggets, though, are an interesting one that I don't think. Do you think enough people are talking about them?
no one is ever going to, there are never going to be enough people talking about the Nuggets and
Right.
the Jazz when the Lakers and the Clippers are good at the same time.
Yeah.
So the answer is obviously no. The Nuggets are going to be really good. I think the Nuggets are going to be the number 1 seed in the Western Conference at the end of the season. That doesn't mean they're going to win it.
Right.
But I think with their continuity and their depth, all these other teams have changed their rosters and had injuries. They're going to roll the ball out and pile up a ton of wins. They have the best home court advantage of the NBA.
I want to see 34-8, I believe, last year, or 33-8. Yeah. So the Michael Porter Jr. thing to me is fascinating, Michael. Like, what do you think they're going to do with him? Off the bench, obviously.
Somebody recently said that Michael Porter Jr. First of all, you can't know how healthy he's going to be. So
Right.
we got to start with that, and we haven't seen him in sort of full game pressure situations. We just haven't seen that. Yet, having said that, I talked to people who told me this week that Michael Porter Jr. is going to be a guy that they project by the end of the year will be able to come off and do so many different things if he's still coming off the bench, that he can have nights where he can score nearly 30 points.
Wow.
There are nights that he will be involved incredibly defensively. He's got a versatility about him. And you hear all this and you're like, wow. Again, without even considering him having that big a slice, I think Denver, if we're going to pick seedings, I'm going to go with Denver 1, again, 2 deep at every position.
Yeah.
What is it that Denver doesn't have? It doesn't have the LA behind its name.
Yeah.
That's essentially what we're talking about. If you strip down, sort of where these teams played and just juggle that, people would see Denver very differently. And Michael Porter Jr. seems to be an enormous piece of that. Again, coming off a team that won 61 games last, what did they win? 60?
They were in the 50s last year.
Were they in the 50s? They ain't got to 60.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, so they led. They were the number 1 seed in the West, and now you're going to add all this to it.
Yeah, the championship window could be fascinating for them, depending on Michael Porter Jr.'s future for sure. That's something to keep an eye on. All right, speaking of keep an eye on some stuff, Buddy Hield said he wanted $110 million last week, but reportedly agreed to a deal today worth $94 million plus incentives. Who got the better end of that deal? We'll discuss. But first, it's time for our distant replay from this date in 2003, featuring the ageless wonder, Vince Carter.
Still going. Yeah. I mean, that's just like
nothing.
That's an average Vince Carter fast break dunk. For everyone else in the league, that's a dunk contest.
Yeah, he's absolutely like yawning while he's doing that, I feel like.